The owl interdimensional reptilian race. Who are they? What are they? What are their traits? I didn't describe too much of this, but I'm going to describe it now, and I'm going to use some movie references from like sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. Okay, well, to get down to the movie references, I think I'm going to start off with horror. Because horror describes these beings, like to the T almost, basically, because what they do and how they do it. And, one of the first movies I thought about when I realized what these things were doing to the people and how they did it was the movie It. Now, there's two versions of this movie. There's the old one from the 90s, which was kind of okay. And then, of course, the new one, which was in 2017, It, and then It Chapter 2. And they broke it up into two different movies. And when I watched these, and I could, because of what I knew about this race, and what they've done, and what they how they feed, I was like, well, this movie's perfect. Because you go to the character, the horror, the monster in the movie, which is a clown,
real enough for you,
which
Billy?
is scary by itself.
I'm not real
And his
enough
name's
for you.
Pennywise. So this thing goes after children mostly, and he feeds off of their fear. He literally eats them as well later on after he scares the hell out of them. And that's the whole point. This monster, this creature, has to scare its prey immensely to get this energy, which I describe in my older videos as loosh, which was first described by Robert Monroe from the Monroe Institute years and years ago. And this term loosh has to do with emotional fear or high emotions. And of course, the most powerful one is fear. Now, we're not talking about love on the other spectrum. Love is also can be used as loosh and as well, but I guess it's just not as tasty, right? So fear is what produces adrenaline, and we know about that stuff and what adrenochrome, adrenaline, those type of things, and what these other things do, and why they scare these little kids into doing that. We heard all that crazy stories about that. But I'm not going to get into that because I want to stick with this owl interdimensional race. So its main goal is, its main food source is fear. And when I learned about this race and what it did, on how it loves to scare the shit out of people because it pretends to be the boogeyman for kids, and the shadow beings and all these other things that people see in their bedrooms at night. And it feeds off fear, and it feeds off chaos and all this other things that it does in day-to-day life with everybody. But mostly it feeds off of, when people are about to die is the best fear that they can get from them, right? And they feed off this, they gorge off of it. And so this movie, It, I found when Stephen King wrote this book, and I was like, this is really interesting because if you look at the origin stories and what they're trying to say this creature is, it's called the Eater of Worlds, right? It Destroyer of Worlds, Eater of Worlds, right? It's an ancient interdimensional creature, alien interdimensional creature that ends up on Earth at some point long ago in the past, and they don't know when. and it's been doing this thing and feeding off mostly children and people's fears to stay alive, right? And it stays hidden, dark underground, and stays out of the light.
Feast on your flesh as I
Which
feed
I
on
also
your
found kind of
fear.
interesting how he wrote this. It's almost like Mr. King there had some sort of intuition of these beings, you know, because I think it's a primal thing that we all have somewhat with this fear stuff. And he was able to capture these ideas in this book and in these movies. Now, when I was researching these things long time ago, well, back in late 2007, 2008, 2009, one of the things I was trying to figure out was, why do they do what they do? And what I got back on the information of that, it said, you know that feeling if you're starving and you smell something delicious, you smell something cooking, and you use your nose, and how that form of smell, that instinct of you wanting to eat something because it smells so good, and you know, say you can't control yourself because you want to eat it, right? It said that's what these things are run by. They run by their instincts. They don't run by a conscious like we do. They don't care about hurt feelings or anything like that. That makes me think, you know, that's where their lizard, reptilian stuff side comes in. They have no feelings like us. They run on instinct, like a shark, or, you know, when a wolf attacks, an animal attacks, and they feed. They're not thinking, you know, they're drawn by the smell and the instinct. And their other instincts are bad too. Like, everything they do is by instinct, right? You know, their humor, their hate, their sexuality, it's all run by instinct. They run on instinct, so they don't care. They rape, they do whatever they want. That's what they do. They don't care. Another description of it was like, it gave me of them was like a wild horse. So in these horses and stallions, especially young stallions, a lot of them are castrated or neutered. They're neutered, right? And what this does is it significantly reduces testosterone and it also decreases the aggression and the territorialness and the dominance and the dominance driven features these animals have. And it explained that to me, stating that that's what these beings are like, except 100 times more, right? So they don't think the same way we do. What drives them is their instincts. They are super intelligent, but you don't have to be nice to be intelligent, right? So that's the whole crazy, sick part about these things, right? So those descriptions of this L race and this movie, I found that this creature is like them somewhat. This thing is driven by instincts. All it wants to do is feed off of fear, right? But it's taken the form of like a monster or demon, and it's a shapeshifter, and it's all done by illusion and lies to convince these kids and these people that it's way worse and more scarier than what it is, right? You can't actually get them until it convinces them to, you know, they freak out. But if they don't freak out and they're not afraid and they start to believe in themselves that this is a lie and these are illusions, it starts to break the spell that this thing has on them. And I found that really interesting because that's what these things do, right? A lot of this race is their power is in lies and lies, right? So that's why I wanted to reference it. So and then moving on, I figured, well, we'll go to fantasy now. And another thing that, another movie that, of course, is really big and it's been out there for a long time is The Lord of the Rings, right? And the monsters in Lord of the Rings, the orcs, right? Now, there's another description I heard when I was trying to figure out more descriptions of this owl race. It gave me the description of orcs as well, as they stay underground. These beings, like their physical bodies, they don't like the light. They're run on instinct as well. They're evil. They don't give a shit what they're doing. And a lot of them are like this. They're like these orcs, and that's what was explained when I was trying to figure out, when I was learning about this. And of course, Tolkien, man, that guy's writings and his books on the magic and the history and all this other stuff, some of it connects to what's going on when we have the good versus the evil, right? The light versus the dark, right? And how these things are hidden. That this guy, I think, also was in tune to what's really going on behind the scenes, but he wrote it in a way that had to do with this fantasy, right? Of this ancient fantasies of elves and, you know, monsters and trolls and all these old myths, right? And I thought, you know, yeah, from my understanding, orcs fit these owl race just fine too, right? And these are the traits. These are the things that I'm not saying that's what they look like. They are something like this in their physical form, from my understanding. But like their physical form, from my understanding, is like a lizard, reptilian, bird, avian creature thing. So yeah, that's what they look like, but they still have traits with these beings from these movies that people, I think, are subconsciously letting out, right, in their writings, and what they look like and what their traits are. It didn't have the interdimensional part, but it had kind of like the parasitic part of this race. And that had to do with the X-Files. Now, the X-Files, there's an alien creature in the X-Files, and they call it the black goo. And the black goo is just what it is. It's just a black goo. But it's parasitic organism, and what it does is it can take over any other creature that it can enter. And if you watch this series, you see they usually go into the body through the orifices, like through the eyes and any holes that you have in your body and under your skin, and they go in and they take it over. And if you watch the movie Fight the Future, it's inside an alien. It comes from an alien, but really that alien was taken over by this creature, by this goo. And other aliens, if you watch in this series, have cut out their eyes, so they can't be taken over by this parasitic race, this alien race. So how I was going to say how this connects to it is, I described the owl race. What they do is they have their own physical bodies, but they don't use their physical bodies all the time. They're they have them, but like I said, they can leave their physical body and they can enter somebody that has been seeded by this other parasitic organism, which is called a wraith. But they can possess these people, which that's another horror movie, I guess, when you talk about demon possession. They can possess anybody that they have one of these parasitic organisms in them. But in the owl race has to have certain bloodline traits, and the person actually has to let these seed being this parasitic thing inside them. Except that was before, but there's been modifications to it since 2020 and 2021, if you know what I'm talking about. So, yeah. What I wanted to get at, though, was how this connects to the X-Files is they're like this parasitic organism. They use other people, they use other beings' bodies, other aliens. Like, from my understanding, they've used lots of other different types. They've used other species of aliens, from what I heard. The Greys, they use them, but mostly the Greys are like, they're slaves, right? But I mean, they can use the Greys' bodies as well, and other beings that people have seen in abduction stories. So it's kind of a mishmash of different types of genre that describe this race, that they're from another dimension, that they're from far away. They are alien to this world, right? And that's what alien really means. It's an alien to this world. I'm not calling these things ETs or extraterrestrials. They're alien. You know, like the Alien movie. These things are just an alien being that's shouldn't be even in existence, from my understanding. And you know, the last one I want to describe here, which I almost forgot about, was Monsters, Inc. Now, Monsters, Inc. is a children's cartoon, animated 3D animated cartoon. And it was interesting when it came out, but it described these monsters that hide under your bed at night when you're a child to scare the shit out of you. And then what it does is it feeds this machine in this other dimension energy from the children's fear, right? And that's how they live over there, is they live off this fear energy. Now, I know they made it more innocent, right, in the show, but, I could see the owls being responsible for this movie myself, and kind of like throwing it in our faces, but make it into something that's nice for kids to watch, right? That's how sick they are. But I mean, it's literally what they do when it comes to shadow beings and boogeymen and things in the closet and things under your bed, scaring mostly children and adults in the dark and causing fear of the dark and of being alone, especially when you're a child, all to power their energy source through these portals and closets and doorways. So, yeah, I just wanted to go over and explain this through some of the movies to give you an idea of this race on mostly their traits and why they do what they do. And yes, they are the definition of evil. Now, I want to clear something up as well, because this, there's also a lot of people just say, well, they're demons, they're demons, they're demons. Yes, they play demons. They pretend to be demons because they know that in religion, people are afraid of demons and they're evil. So they pretend to be those things. Just like in Pennywise, he becomes what you fear. You guys have to realize this is way bigger than a Bible story that they talk about, because that story is made up. Most of it is made up. Not all of it. Some of the oldest texts have some good descriptions and certain things that was going on back then, but the main part of it is all made up bullshit, right? So, sorry to tell you that, but they're not demons. They play demons. They're not angels. They play angels. They're not God, but they play God. You have to start realizing that You have to open your mind up a lot bigger than what you think you know. You gotta let go of some of this stuff. That's what that shit's called when it comes to when you can't let go of a belief because you foolhardily believe in something. Some of these things you gotta let go. Otherwise, you're not gonna understand this properly.